Okay, let's go over factoring those six expressions, the given expressions. Let's start with number one. On number one, I have, as you see, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and the best way to factor this is by grouping. So we're going to look first at the first two terms and the last two terms. If you look at the first two terms, you notice there is a 5 and a v as a common factor. So we're going to call this the GCF between 5v and 30v squared. Remember, 30 is 5 times 6, and v squared is v times v. So there is a v here, and there is a 5 here. Now what's the number I multiply by 5v to give me 30v squared? This will be 6v. So now I have 5v times 6v is 30v squared. I went back to my original expression. The next one, what's the number I multiply by 5v to give me negative 5v, and that would be a negative 1. Now we move to the second two terms. Between 6vf and f, I have f as a common factor. So I'm going to take f as common factor, and we notice that f times what will give me 6vf? It would be 6v. And f times what will give me negative f? It would be negative 1. Now if you notice here, I have a 6v minus 1 and a 6v minus 1, and I can take also this as a common factor. So I take 6v minus 1 as common factor. I have 5v left from the first term, and I have f left from the second term. So again, if I multiply 6v minus 1 times 5v, I get the first term. If I multiply 6v minus 1 times f, I get the second term. So every time you have to check back and see if you get back to the original example. That would be the final answer. Let's look at the second. The second also is a 4 term, and we're going to try the same method. Look at the first two terms and look at the second two terms. If you look at the first two terms, you have b squared. Here you have b cubed. So my GCF is b squared. So I'm going to take b squared as my common factor for the first two terms. What's the number you multiply by b squared to give you b cubed? That's b to the power 1, because 1 plus 2 is 3. Minus, what's the number you multiply by b squared to give you negative 25b squared? And that's a negative 25. So let's try one more time. B squared times b is b cubed, and b squared times negative 25 is negative 25b squared. Let's move to the next one. Now looking at the next one, we have a negative 9b and we have a 225. So I see here 225 is nothing but 25 times 9. Think about quarters. 9 quarters is 225, $2.25. So I have a 9 here, I have a 9 here, but there is one important thing I need to do here. Should I take 9 as common factor or negative 9? I'm going to take negative 9, and I'm going to tell you why. If I take, actually, I will take negative 9, yes. So let me take negative 9, and I'll tell you why. Because now, what is the number you multiply by negative 9 to give you negative 9b? It would be b. And that way I have the same b as this one. If I take 9 as common factor, then I'll have to put negative b, and I'm be changing the factor. I want to get the same factor here as well as here. And now you will see what's the number I multiply by negative 9 to give me plus 225. It would be negative 25. And you see I have exactly the same two factors. So that negative 9 made a big difference, because if I have taken 9 instead of negative 9, then I'll have to have negative b plus 25, and that would make my two factors different. I won't be able to take b minus 25 as a common factor in my next step. At this time I can, because this is b minus 25, this is b minus 25. They're exactly the same. I can take b minus 25 as a common factor. Now I'm left with b squared here, and I'm left with negative 9 here. The only thing with this problem, I cannot stop here, because this is called a difference of two squares. This is called a difference of 2 squared, and I can factor this to b minus 3, b plus 3. So my final answer here would be b minus 25. The b squared minus 9 can be factored to b minus 3, b plus 3. Again, this is called difference of two squares, this one here. That's how we factor difference of two squares. It's a pattern, and it's a squared minus b squared is a minus b, a plus b. Let's move to the next, number 3. Here it's a trinomial, and we see that we have a common factor. We have an r everywhere, r squared, r cubed, r. Also 20 is divisible by 5, 45 is divisible by 5, and 140 is divisible by 5. You know, the last is 0 here, digit, last digit is 0, last digit is 5, last digit is 0. So let's take here 5r as a common factor. So what's the number you multiply by 5r to give you 20r cubed? It would be 4r squared. What's the number you multiply by 5r to give you 45r squared? This would be 9r. 5 times 9, 45. And r times r is r squared. Finally, what's the number you multiply by 5 to give you 140? 14 divided by 5 is 2. The remainder is 4. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So that would be negative 28. And already we have r here. So that would be negative 140 r. Now we have to look at this factor here. This is a trinomial, and we would like to factor the trinomial. To factor the trinomial, we're gonna try the trial and error. So as we have a 4 times 7, that's gonna be 28. And then if I try 4r times r, I get the 4r squared. And if I try, let's say, a 7 and 4, it'd be 16 minus 7, and that will give me the 9. So I'm all set. The best way to do this problem here is to go 4r, and then go r here, and then I have to get the 7 here, and the 4 here. And why did I do this? Because think about it. What is this? This will give me 16r, and this will give me 7r. If I subtract 16 minus 7, I'm going to get my middle term. But 7 times 4 is 28. 4r times r is 4r squared. So I satisfied all three terms. Let's go over it one more time. I have a 4r here, and I have a 4 here. So 4r times 4 is 16. 4r times 4 is 16r. And then 7r. So let me do plus 16 minus 7. That would give me the 9r. And 4r times r is 4r squared. Negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. So I satisfied all three terms. Let's look at number 4. Again, number 4, you see we have an s cubed as a common factor. So let's take s cubed as a common factor. We will end up with s squared minus 4s, and then plus 4. Okay, so let's make sure this is right. S cubed times s squared is s5. S cubed times negative 4s is negative 4s4. And s cubed times 4 is 4s cubed. So now it's pretty almost done. We need to factor the trinomial. This is s cubed. So we need to factor the trinomial. And to factor the trinomial, I need to look for a product of 2 and sum of negative 4. Of course, that would be s minus 2, s minus 2. The product is 4, and the product is 4, and the sum is negative 4. And of course, we can write this as a one more step as s cubed times s minus 2 quantity squared. Looking at the last two, we have this is a binomial. If you look at the binomial here, you notice that we have 4 common factor, we have a common factor, and we have g common factor. So let's look at 4a g as my GCF. Again, between 4 and 20, I have 4. between a squared and a, I have a, and between g squared and g, I have g. What's the number you multiply by 4ag to give you 4a squared g? That's ag. Because a times a is a squared, g times g is g squared, and then 4. Minus, what's the number you multiply by 4 to give you 20? That's 5. A is already here, g is already here, so we're done. 4ag times ag minus 5. One more. This is also a trinomial, and you notice here there is no GCF, there is no common factor. But this VP, I mean, it looks like a y squared and VP. So let's say let y equals VP. You know, that would make my problem much simpler. Then I will have, instead of v squared p squared, I will have y squared. Instead of VP, I will have 2y, and then minus 24. So if I want to factor this, I'm going to say the product is 24 and the sum is negative 2. And that would be 6 and 4. So y would be minus 6 and that would be plus 4. The product is negative 24. The sum is negative 2. And now I can replace y by VP, and that's it. We'll be done. VP minus 6, and then VP plus 4. And that would be the final answer. I hope that helped. Good luck.